If you've been eating carnivore or keto and you get your labs back and your A1C went up, first of all, breathe. Second, don't let one number bully you out of a lifestyle that may be fixing the root cause. Because sometimes what looks worse on paper is actually a measurement problem, not a metabolism problem. So today, we're decoding blood work through a metabolic health lens. A1C, insulin resistance, cholesterol markers, uric acid, inflammation, what good can look like on carnivore, what changes are normal adaptations, and what deserves a real pause. Quick comment check-in. Where are you watching from? And which lab number has you staring at the screen like, so, we're fighting today. Also, word of the day, contextualize. It means to put something in proper context. And if there's one thing lab numbers need, it's context. Because a number without context is just a jump scare. And before we begin, remember, this is educational only. Talk to your clinician for personal decisions. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with the metabolic big three: A1C, fasting glucose, fasting insulin. A1C is supposed to estimate your average blood sugar over 3 months, based on how much glucose sticks to your red blood cells. And for many people, when insulin resistance improves on low carb, A1C improves too. But here's the curveball. This is where people get confused. Some carnivore and low carb folks can see A1C rise even while their overall metabolic health is improving. This is exactly why I made a separate video called the A1C Paradox, correcting A1C for red blood cell lifespan on low carb diets and carnivore diets. I highly recommend you watch that one because it helps you understand how red blood cell lifespan can skew A1C. If your red blood cells live longer, they have more time to accumulate glucose, and your A1C can look higher than what your actual glucose control would suggest. If they turn over faster, A1C can look artificially low. So if A1C doesn't match your lived reality, energy is better, waist is down, cravings are down, triglycerides are down. Don't panic, investigate. 2 labs that can help add context to A1C are your fasting glucose and fructosamine, more of a shorter-term average glucose marker. Now, fasting glucose itself can be tricky on low carb. Some people see fasting glucose slightly higher in the morning even while fasting insulin is low. That can be due to the dawn phenomena and normal liver glucose output, your body making sure you can function without face planting into your morning meeting. But the real unsung hero here is fasting insulin. If your insulin is elevated, your body is often working overtime to keep glucose in range. When fasting insulin comes down, that's a metabolic win. And this is where we talk about HOMA-IR, which is a simple way to estimate insulin resistance. If your labs are in milligrams per deciliter for glucose, the common formula is HOMA-IR equals fasting glucose times fasting insulin divided by 405. Fasting glucose in milligrams per deciliter, fasting insulin in micro international units. If your glucose is reported in millimoles per liter, then HOMA-IR is equal to fasting glucose times fasting insulin divided by 22.5. Lower is generally better, and the trend over time matters. Now let's move to the lab section that causes the most Google spirals: cholesterol. Most standard lipid panels include total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, HDL, triglycerides. On carnivore, a lot of people see triglycerides go down, HDL goes up. That combo, lower triglycerides and higher HDL, is often a great sign of improving insulin sensitivity. A quick practical clue is the triglyceride to HDL ratio. When triglycerides drop and HDL rises, that's definitely a metabolic health thumbs up. But then LDL shows up like a loud uncle at Thanksgiving. Here's the truth. LDL cholesterol can go up, down, or stay the same on carnivore. Genetics, body fat changes, thyroid status, and diet composition all matter. Also, if you're actively losing weight, lipids can temporarily shift because you're mobilizing stored fat. Sometimes it settles when weight stabilizes. But to contextualize LDL properly, you want more than LDL cholesterol. That's where ApoB and LDL particle testing comes in. Think of it like my high weight analogy in a previous video. LDL cholesterol is like asking, how much stuff is being transported? But ApoB and LDL particles are closer to asking, how many vehicles are on the road? More vehicles means more opportunities for traffic problems, especially when inflammation and insulin resistance are present. And this is also where I want you to watch another video of mine because it makes the visual click. That video is entitled, "You Didn't Understand Your Cholesterol Labs Until Now." That's the one where I used a highway visual to explain LDL cholesterol versus particle number and why it matters. Now, small dense LDL can be more associated with insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction. And we should also add lipoprotein small particle A, often written as LPA because it's a major missing piece for many people. LPA is largely genetic, and you can have pretty decent standard cholesterol numbers but still have elevated LPA, which can increase cardiovascular risk independent of other markers. So when people say my family had heart disease but we all eat healthy, as a doctor, I want to know, was LPA ever checked? So a lipid upgrade panel I like to mention includes ApoB, LDL particle number, lipoprotein small particle A, non-HDL cholesterol, and optional is a high sensitivity C-reactive protein to help interpret risk context. All right, now let's hit inflammation and root cause markers. High sensitivity C-reactive protein is a useful inflammatory marker. If it's elevated, I'm thinking sleep apnea, chronic stress, smoking, periodontal disease, visceral fat, autoimmune activity, chronic infections, poor recovery, or ultra-processed foods, even keto ones. Also add fasting triglycerides plus high sensitivity CRP plus fasting insulin together, and you start to see the metabolic story more clearly. Now, what about liver markers? ALT and AST, GGT, which is great to include because it can be a sensitive marker for metabolic stress and fatty liver patterns. Fatty liver is insulin resistance wearing a trench coat. When carbs drop and insulin improves, liver enzymes often trend the right way, especially with body fat loss. Now to uric acid, because ketosis and gout questions show up like clockwork. Uric acid can rise early in ketosis because ketones and uric acid compete for excretion in the kidneys. For many people, it settles. For others, especially if they have gout, this needs a more careful strategy. Root cause thinking for elevated uric acid includes rapid weight loss pace, dehydration or low electrolytes, alcohol intake, especially beer and spirits, fructose exposure, yes, sugar again, kidney function. Now let's talk about kidney labs. Most people get creatinine and estimated glomerular filtration rate, but creatinine can be influenced by muscle mass and protein intake. So if there's confusion or concern, consider a cystatin C, which often gives a clear filtration estimate, urine albumin to creatinine ratio, which is an early kidney stress signal, and a urinalysis. Now, you may be asking if anything else is missing. Here are a few labs that are high yield but won't turn the video into a Netflix series. Blood pressure and waist circumference aren't blood tests, but they are metabolic labs you can measure at home. I mention them briefly because they predict outcomes powerfully. And for many people on Carnivore, I also like to include thyroid panels like TSH, free T4, and sometimes free T3 if there are symptoms like fatigue, cold intolerance, hair changes, or constipation, or unexpected lipid shifts. Thyroid status can strongly influence lipids. A vitamin D, not because Carnivore breaks it, but because deficiency is common and affects immune function, mood, and inflammation. Ferritin plus iron studies if fatigue is an issue, because ferritin is both iron storage and an inflammation marker, because context matters again. And by the way, I did make a video to explain how to read iron labs as well. Now, let's keep this practical and not scary. If your labs come back and you don't love them, here are carnivore-friendly adjustments that don't require you to throw away the whole plan. If fasting insulin is still high, tighten carbohydrate exposure, cut keto treats, look at sleep, stress, and snacking frequency. If A1C looks worse but everything else looks better, watch my A1C paradox video and consider fructosamine and red blood cell context. If LDL cholesterol is high and you want to experiment, reduce fat bombing, prioritize protein first, consider leaner cuts for a season, add omega-3 rich seafood, and recheck when weight is stable. If lipoprotein small particle A is high, don't self-blame, this is often genetic. Simply focus hard on modifiable risk: insulin, inflammation, blood pressure, smoking, visceral fat, and discuss targeted options with your clinician. If uric acid is high, slow down rapid weight loss. Hydrate, electrolytes, avoid fructose and heavy alcohol, and address gout history seriously. Now, if this video is helping, hit like and subscribe because YouTube needs that signal. And I need the algorithm to stop sending people videos like raw kale cleanses your mitochondria. Here's my closing message. Your blood work isn't a verdict, it's a dashboard. It's not there to shame you, it's there to point you toward root cause. And when you learn how to read it correctly, A1C included, you stop being scared of the numbers and you start using them to build real, durable metabolic health. And if you want deeper help, watch these 2 videos next. The A1C Paradox, correcting A1C for red blood cell lifespan on low-carb diets and carnivore diets. And you didn't understand your cholesterol labs until now. They'll help you take the confusion out of your labs and turn it into a plan. Check the description and click the playlist for more metabolic health videos because the goal isn't just weight loss. It's becoming the kind of healthy where your labs finally match how good you feel.